Hey everyone, good morning. So I'm Kevin Sullivan from Pipas Law Group, personal injury and accident attorney, and today I wanted to talk to you guys about car insurance. I do not sell car insurance. I am not a claims adjuster, nor do I work from the insurance company. As I said, I'm a personal injury attorney, and I'm just talking to you guys basically based on my experience as far as how car insurance is used after you get into a car accident. So we're going to kind of do this quickly. There's going to be a couple ground rules or a couple absolutes that we're going to talk about before we get started. So the first thing is, everybody in the state of Florida is required to have $10,000 in no-fault protection, also known as PIP or personal injury protection. So that is not, although it's not rather than to go into our formula, everybody in the state of Florida should have $10,000 in no-fault coverage. So that's number one. Number two is, in this example, or these examples rather, we're not talking about going after somebody personally or going after any assets. We're just talking about insurance coverage in these examples, and I wanted to go over this so you guys, because a lot of people I hear often that they have full coverage. So let's see if that's actually the case. Number three is that we're not talking about anything to do with health insurance. Like I said, we're just talking about auto insurance, and we're going to go over these examples right here. So the first example is the at fault right here. So the at fault, my horrible handwriting, you can go ahead and excuse me for that. So the at fault has bodily injury coverage. So although you may see that on your declarations page, or your car insurance provider may tell you that you have bodily injury coverage, you do, but that is going to cover you or cover the other person if they are at fault for the accident. So the at fault in the accident, you're rear-ended, that's our example, so let's start with that. You're rear-ended, sitting at a stoplight, they're at fault, they're deemed at fault for the accident, okay? They have $10,000 in bodily injury coverage, okay? So what does that mean? That means that from their insurance, you are only able to go after them for $10,000. Now, if they don't pay, etc., there's this whole bad faith thing. We're not going over bad faith in this video either. We're keeping it at 30,000 feet. So $10,000 you have to go after the at fault. Now, on your own policy, so this is you have what is called uninsured motorist coverage. Now, uninsured, or also known as underinsured motorist coverage, comes into play when basically the damages are more, or going to look like they're going to be more than the bodily injury coverage. So when would that come into play? Say you have $20,000 in medical expenses. Say, for example, that you have a permanent injury. Say, for example, you may need future treatment. You may have lost work. There's a lot of things that could determine if you qualify for uninsured motorist coverage. So what would you have total? Well, in the state of Florida, you can actually stack these. So basically, you would have $60,000 in insurance coverage to go after in this accident example. So let's move on to our next example. Right here, we have the at fault bodily injury. They have zero, so they don't have any coverage. Why is that allowed in the state of Florida? There's no requirement to have bodily injury coverage, only the no-fault coverage we discussed prior, and then also to property damage coverage, which we're not going over in this video. So they are not required to have bodily injury coverage. You are not required to have uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage. So what does that mean? If you're rear-ended by this individual and you don't have any uninsured motorist coverage, you do get your $10,000 in no-fault coverage, the PIP coverage, but you don't get anything else. So that means that you end up with zero. That's not good. So that's why you always see these postings, and you see them from myself and other attorneys and people that are kind of in the know, that it's so important to get uninsured motorist coverage, because if you're in this situation right here, you could end up with nothing, and that's not good. Obviously, I think that goes without saying. So finally, for our last example, we have a smart cookie on the end right here. So they have, although they have zero BI, there is $100,000 in uninsured motorist coverage. UM coverage. So if they're involved in an accident, they get their $10,000 in no-fault benefits. As I said, everybody's entitled to that. And then they get $100,000 in uninsured motorist coverage that they could use to pay medical expenses, lost wages, pain and suffering, future medical expenses. This is the best example right here. And why do I say that? Well, they have protection. They have that $100,000 in protection. You can buy it in $10,000, $25,000, $50,000, $100,000, and so on. So there's different increments that you can buy, but I would say uninsured motorist coverage is probably the most important car insurance coverage that you can have, because God forbid you're in an accident in Florida where there's no requirement for bodily injury coverage. You have to protect yourself. I understand that's unfortunate, it's not right, I get that completely, But at the end of the day, I'm telling you, you have to protect yourself. You have to make sure that your family, as well, like I said, yourself is safe. So if you have any questions, as always, feel free to give me a call, 813-598-4868, or look me up at lawkevin.com. And these are the car insurance basics. Talk to you soon.